So, I'm faced with the perennial problem one has when confronted with a brilliant and beautiful crowd such as this. And that is, I have so much I'd like to talk with you about and not much time to do it in. So I apologize if I move quickly, but I have full faith that you will have no problem keeping up. I want to begin with a sort of Socratic confession. As many of you probably know, the Greek philosopher Socrates did not claim to have any sort of special knowledge or expertise that made him any wiser than anyone else. On the contrary, he thought that whatever wisdom he may have had stemmed solely from the fact that he simply knew what he did not know, which is to say he was ignorant, but he was aware of his ignorance, and he was willing to ask the questions that needed to be asked in order to remedy it. And he pretty much never succeeded in terms of finding any final answer or capital T truths. But that didn't matter because the value lay in the questioning itself. And so it's in that spirit in which I wish to proceed here today. And the question that I want to ask you is one that I first asked of myself a little over a year ago. And it's something that you're going to probably have two immediate responses to. One, you're going to feel mildly insulted. And two, you're going to think that you have an immediate and obvious answer to it. And that question is, do you have any friends? If you're anything like me, your immediate reaction to that question is, well, yeah, I have friends. I have a lot of friends. In fact, I probably have more friends than you. But that's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, right? It doesn't really tell us very much. And for me, that was an unsatisfactory answer. I wanted to dig a little deeper. So the question then became, do you have any friends with whom you are not Facebook friends, or with whom you do not engage in any social media interaction at all? Okay, this is a little more interesting. Not that the answer to that question is particularly interesting, but that the fact that it can even be posed suggests that there's a tension between the real world, our real world relationships, and the online world. It's something that's worth exploring. Is there, or ought there to be, a difference between online and offline friendship? What has friendship become in the age of Facebook? So for me, being a student of history and of political theory, my first inclination when asking these types of questions is to look backwards at what others have thought about them in the past and to see what I can learn from them. So I have to apologize again, but I want to bring out my second Greek philosopher of the day, Aristotle. And Aristotle thought that there were three types of friendship. Friendship of utility, which is basically the type of relationship where individuals simply use one another as a means to an end. So we could think today perhaps of it as a business relationship, something of this nature. Second type of friendship is friendship of pleasure, where individuals engage in a relationship purely because they derive some sort of pleasure from one another. And that's where the relationship begins and ends. So we could think of kind of casual acquaintanceships, something like players on team sports or members of a book club, something of that nature. Finally, and most importantly, we arrive at true friendship, or friendship of virtue. And this is the type of friendship, this is the real deal. This is the type of friendship that's created through sustained and intimate shared activity that occurs over time, to the point where, ideally, you truly come to identify with your friend as an extension of yourself. Their happiness is your happiness. Their sadness is your sadness. Their problems are your problems. Their good is your good. And if this sounds a lot like love, that's because it pretty much is. The Greeks had a much broader conception of love than we do today. And this particular type was called philia. This type of intimate friendship, through this type of intimate friendship, we can develop a sense of obligation. And this is key, okay? Because with this sense of obligation, we begin to be willing to make sacrifices for other people, okay? But what I mean by obligation and sacrifices is a willingness to make a small sacrifice of your own in order to better your friend, to increase their happiness, not simply because you feel that in so doing you may get something back from them in return down the road, but rather because you truly identify with them as an extension of yourself. By helping them out, you help yourself. And this is how friendship becomes important for politics and society in general, because through this sense of obligation, we are able to better improve our society. We develop alongside this sense of obligation feelings or virtues that we supposedly value in a good liberal democratic society in which we live. Virtues like toleration, cooperation, a willingness to make concessions, the ability to see things from others' perspectives. in a world in which we face increasingly global problems, we need to find a way to relate to others at this level of intimacy that we feel for our friends, right? Because how else can we ever solve problems that transcend the boundaries of nation or city and state? Things like climate change, world poverty, world hunger, human rights violations. And so in order to better explain this concept to you, I want to make my third and final stop on my philosophy world tour with the Roman statesman Cicero, who popularized the conception of the individual's position in the world that is best explained with this diagram here. In the center of the picture, you have the individual, yourself. You're surrounded by your family and friends at the most intimate level. These are the people with whom you're closest to. From there, you expand to the city, people you still identify with and feel close to, but of course not quite as close as you feel with your friends and family. And this loss of intimacy continues as we proceed to the level of the nation and to the world at large, where at the level of the world, all we probably can feel is a vague sense of shared humanity, right? But this is a far cry from the intimacy that we feel for our friends. And in order to address these global problems, we need to figure out a way to develop that intimacy. With the advent of new types of technology, specifically the internet, we feel empowered as individuals to leap from our position in the center of the circle straight out to the edge of the world, okay? But the problem is that in so doing, we perhaps neglect to carry with us those virtues that we've developed with our friends, toleration and cooperation. So instead, perhaps a better way to think of this is that we need to carry with us those virtues as we pass through from the center circle out to the edge. Okay? So at this point, you're probably wondering, well, what the hell does this have to do with social networking? And the answer to that is, I think social networking is destructive of the type of intimacy that I've been talking about that we need to develop amongst our friends. Okay, and I think it's destructive of this in two ways. And I want to be clear here that I'm speaking primarily to those around my age and younger. And the reason for that is not that this doesn't apply to older people, but because, like Bane, we were born in social networking. They merely adopted it, okay? So we don't have a frame of reference from which to compare our lives to. We've been in social networking from the beginning, okay? So the ways that I think social networking is destructive of friendship, and there are two primary ones. One's online, one's offline. Online, I think there's a problem of trivialization of aspects of our personalities that in the past had been more important for friendship. And I'll give you an example, a very easy example that you can all relate to. Birthdays. Birthdays are part of the trivia that we enter into our Facebook profiles and that we assume that our friends enter as well. And for that reason, we think in the back of our minds, well, we can always look up our friend's birthday. We don't need to remember it quite as closely as we may have in the past. And in fact, Facebook takes the extra step for us and will remind us of when our friend's birthday is coming up a few days in advance. So we really don't have to remember at all. It's assumed this burden for us. And so at what point then do we cease to be wishing our friends happy birthday because they're our friends and it's our birthday, and instead start doing it simply because Facebook told us to? So that's the online way. The offline way, which I think is perhaps even more pernicious, ironically enough, is I can also illustrate for you with an example. And this is something that we're all familiar with and that I'm sure we're all guilty of as well. After this awesome conference is over, you're going to go out with your friends, perhaps to the after party that we're hosting, and you're going to be having a great time with them. And you're going to be having such a great time that your hand is going to start shaking. And you're going to feel the urge to reach down into your pocket and pull out your phone, right? Or your purse and pull out your phone. And you're going to leave your friends and you're going to enter the world of Facebook, okay? Because you need to tell the internet what a good time you're having, how much fun you're having. But the problem is that when you do that, you cease to be having fun. You're no longer having that fun time because you lose the thread of conversation You break eye contact with that cute girl or guy across the bar and they leave. Your drink is empty. The music has changed on the stereo. The sun is setting. The night's over. And you go home alone so you can stare at yourself online some more. Okay? And if it seems like I'm dramatizing some small and meaningless things, it's because I kind of am. And they are small, but they're not meaningless. And that's because there are but a few of many, many, many small things. And this is why I think social networking is changing our conception of friendship through a process of creeping normalcy, which is where something changes bit by bit, gradually, over time, so slowly that we don't really notice that it's happening until it's too late, and we realize suddenly that the thing is totally different than what it once was. Okay? So, what can we do about this? How can we reclaim intimacy and perhaps harness it to apply those virtues of toleration and cooperation that we develop through intimate friendship to combat the problems that face us on a global level? Well, I think part of the answer to that lies in changing our attitudes towards social networking. And so I want to leave you with a challenge that you can accept here today. And that is, after I finish, there are going to be 2 speakers, and then we're going to have a brief intermission. Now, these speakers are going to be phenomenal, and you're going to be spellbound by them. But during the intermission, I would be willing to bet that almost all of you, if not all of you, will feel that urge to reach in your pocket and pull out your phone. Challenge is, resist it, okay? Don't be like this girl here. Stay with us, be present, okay? And strike up a conversation with whoever's next to you. Chances are, you're cool and you're here, so they're probably pretty cool too. So strike up a conversation, or come find me and we can have a conversation if you're not altogether tired of hearing me talk yet. And I guarantee you that if you do this, you will be able to answer that question that I posed at the beginning of my talk. Do you have any friends? With at least one yes. Okay? Thank you.